Welcome to Pub Sports Radio's Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, another edition of the show. I'm here every Thursday, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, breaking down every game in the NFL for the upcoming week right here on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. Great to be back. I'm always excited to be doing this show. To be honest with you, I look at the calendar, and today is Thursday, November the 5th, and look what I've got. I've got a golf shirt on. Yes. 70 degrees Fahrenheit, approaching that here in my neck of the woods today in the early part of November. Are you kidding me? But we'll take it. Anytime we can get temperatures like this, especially here in Canada, north of the border, hey, we're going to take it. No question about that. So it's a nice weather day. I'm in good spirits, good mood, lots of energy, which is good because you need it to break down every single game on the NFL card like we do every week on the show. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's get right to it. We've got a big card as always, and we've got a game where if there was an NFL game on this week's slate where it's the poster child for, hey, I can make it in the NFL. I could get the call. I could suit up and play on the football field. This is it because there's just so many personnel issues and players out on both of these teams going into tonight that even I'm hopeful that maybe one day I'll get the call and say, Ian, get your helmet on, get your shoulder pads on, get out there, give it your best shot. You might be able to make the team. I might be getting a call pretty soon from one of these teams. Green Bay, San Francisco. The situation with these two teams going into this game is absolutely bonkers in terms of who's in and who's out. There's more people out than in at this point. And Green Bay, of course, has taken a ton of money. I mean, this opened, this was as low as about Green Bay -2.5 late Sunday night, early Monday morning. And then, of course, all the San Francisco issues, come around or announced. First it was Jimmy G and George Kittle, who are going to be out indefinitely for the 49ers after what happened against Seattle last weekend. And the COVID issues happened. And then Green Bay it's been a one-way move in this game on the Green Bay Packers. They're now all the way up to 6.5, 7-point road favorites in this game with a total of 48.5. Where do we even begin? I mean, let's start with San Francisco because it's probably more severe on their side of the football in terms of who's not going to be available for them tonight. It's insane. And this is what you get, unfortunately. Welcome to COVID season, right? Welcome to COVID-19 season. And what we've got here is a situation where the San Francisco 49ers are just deluged in multiple positions. We know who's out on defense. We know Nick Bosa and Dee Ford early in the season out. Quan Alexander now traded. The defense is racked with just a ton of injuries coming into this game. The running back position, Jeff Wilson's on IR. Raheem Mostert, your number one running back, is on IR. Tevin Coleman's going to be out for this game. So you're down to JaMychal Hasty and Jerick McKinnon as your two running backs. The wide receiver position is insane how many guys are missing in action from the 49ers at the wide receiving core. You're talking about Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, and then there's a bunch of guys that have been on IR all season like Jalen Hurd and Chris Thompson. But Samuel, Ayuk, and Bourne are the ones that we found out this week. COVID-19 situations. Bourne, in fact, tested positive, for the virus. So he's out. You're looking at Trent Taylor and not a whole lot else in terms of experience at wide receiver for the 49ers going into this game tonight. So good luck with throwing the football and finding chemistry with your receivers tonight. If you're Nick Mullins trying to lead this 49ers offense. Tight end, we know George Kittle is out indefinitely. Ross Dwelly is now going to become the number one tight end for the 49ers tonight. So they are just ravaged by injury. Ravaged by injuries and COVID, essentially. It's a combination of both. It's not even fair. It's not even fair to say that they're ravaged. I mean, it feels like that's not even a strong enough word to describe what's going on right now here with the San Francisco 49ers at this point. But it's not rainbows and sunshine and lollipops for the Green Bay Packers either going into this game in terms of who's going to be available to play. I mean, you look at the Green Bay situation going into this game, a running back spot is also a little bit in peril tonight. Aaron Jones is going to be a game-time decision as he continues to battle through a calf injury. Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon have already been ruled out, the number 2 and number 3 backs, because of the COVID situation that developed with Dillon in particular. And Williams was a potential contact to Dillon, so that's why they're being held out of the game tonight. So if Aaron Jones doesn't play, who's your top back, Tyler Ervin and Dexter Williams are going to be the two guys getting the carries here for the Green Bay Packers. The good news is they're going to have, Devontae Adams has returned the last few weeks, and he's been great in the passing game with Aaron Rodgers. Valdez Scantling, Equiminius St. Brown have stepped up in secondary roles as well, which is key because Alan Lazard, who's another guy that that Aaron Rodgers really keyed on throwing the football to, has been on IR the last few weeks. Robert Tonyan, of course, the tight ends really stepped up as well for the Packers. So to me, it's a game here where San Francisco, we saw them get shredded on defense by Russell Wilson last week through the air, mostly. That's trouble against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. We know this team is most dangerous throwing the football. They've got Devontae Adams healthy and just almost looking like he's unstoppable now on a week-in, week-out basis. I don't know if San Francisco personnel-wise can match up with Green Bay. On the flip side, though, Matt LaFleur talked about it after the loss to Minnesota last week. He's been the Green Bay Packers know this continues to be an issue. The run defense is quite honestly pathetic. Pathetic, it is. I mean, that to me is not. It might be harsh, but it's accurate. This run defense is absolutely horrendous for the Green Bay Packers. You think all the way back to when they played this same San Francisco 49ers team in the playoffs last year, where San Francisco's running the ball in every single play. Green Bay knows it's coming, and they still cannot stop the run. And I worry about that here tonight. I mean, Nick Mullins isn't going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, I think we're going to get into some props. There's a lot of props that from a game flow perspective and a game plan perspective, I think you can expect a lot of running from the 49ers tonight. So there are a bunch of player props tonight in the game that I'm targeting based on that particular thought process that I have, that San Francisco is really going to be run heavy tonight. Don't ask Nick Mullins to throw the ball a lot and dare this Green Bay run defense to stop it. This is not just about scheme. This is not just about talent and ability to do your job properly. This is about manning up, being tough, being physical in the trenches, at the point of attack, along the line of scrimmage. That's what this is about for Green Bay. How tough are they? Can they man up? Because this defensive front against the run has been steamrolled time and time again. And the San Francisco 49ers did it again to them last year in the playoffs. Minnesota with Dalvin Cook last week, he was getting the ball a lot. Green Bay knew he was getting the ball a lot. And when you know the team's just running the ball, eventually at some point you got to make a few stops against that ground game, against that ground attack. Green Bay never did. And that's the issue. Like, they know that the teams that some of these teams they played are running the football a ton against them, and they can't stop it. It continues to be a huge problem. They're giving up 4.7 yards per carry, on the ground, nearly 5 yards per carry per rush. So the average of every run play against this Packers defense is basically setting up the team for 2nd and 5. And you're always in short, down and distance situations, which of course makes your offense a whole lot more effective. That's the problem for the Green Bay Packers, is that, it's impossible for them to keep teams in 2nd and 3rd and long, because they're going to hand the ball off and they're already going to get damn near close to at least half the first down yardage on that very first down carry. And that's going to have to change for the Green Bay Packers in this game. And it's going to have to change if they want to be a legit NFC and Super Bowl contender down the road this season. So from a side perspective here in this game, Green Bay's taking all the money with the San Francisco issues. I get it. Like, if you got Green Bay minus 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, even 5 up to 6, good. You got a good number. I wouldn't argue with it. They probably win the game. Now we're talking 7 here, though. And Green Bay having to win this game by at least a touchdown, if not more. If you're going to bet Green Bay now, they've got to win by at least a touchdown, if not more. And here's the problem I have. If San Francisco is going to run the football with success, like pretty much every team that's played this miserable Packers run defense has been able to do so far, it's going to mean time-consuming drives, It's going to mean keeping Aaron Rodgers on the sideline, off the field, move the chains, gradual first downs. And it gets to the point where if San Francisco is just with this methodical ground attack, which is what I think Kyle Shanahan's going to go to tonight against this team, it's going to mean first down, first down, first down. The clock churns. And San Francisco's already, as it is, not a very fast-paced team in terms of snapping the ball quickly. They let the play clock run down before they run the next play. And, if they're going to just continue to milk clock, get first downs, which they, I think, have the ability to do because, JaMycal Hasty and Jerick McKinnon have been effective for them running the football against other teams this year. So they should be effective being able to run it against a Green Bay run defense. And yeah, I know Matt LaFleur was talking, we got to fix it, we got to fix it, we got to fix it. And that's fine, that's great. But this is a short week and you're going on the road. Do you really think you're going to have the time necessary and the practice availability this week to fix the fundamental flaws and problems you're having stopping the run? I doubt it. I doubt it. So to me, this becomes a mountain of a number to have to cover if Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be on the field as much because Green Bay is just going to run, keep the drives going, and be able to have success and keep Rodgers off the field. How many possessions is Green Bay going to have here in this game? So that's why this number is getting up there. I don't think I can take San Francisco even at 7, but I'll tell you what, if it gets beyond this threshold of a full touchdown, I'm going to be tempted by San Francisco for some kind of bet. It'll be a very small one for me, but the matchup is concerning because San Francisco should be able to run it, and Green Bay has had trouble stopping it. From a totals perspective, San Francisco, I think, will have success running the ball, but I think Green Bay will have success throwing the ball on this 49ers secondary that was picked apart a little bit last week, more than a little bit, by Russell Wilson and the Seahawks in that game last week. And now you're facing Aaron Rodgers in a pissed off mood after his team lost against the Vikings last week. Aaron Rodgers is 30-19, I believe, ATS in his career off a loss. He's always been a good bounce back quarterback, played well after a loss, although the loss he didn't play great last week against Minnesota. He didn't. That was not a great Aaron Rodgers game. I think the bigger issues were the defense last week, but still, he knows he has to play better, is capable of playing better, and you would expect him. So San Francisco should have offensive edges. So should Green Bay. It points me to over, in this game. The total of 48.5 right now is where it sits. But if San Francisco is going to effectively run the football and keep these drives going, you could see these 6, 7, 8-minute drives for San Francisco, and it's going to make this total a little bit difficult to get over, even if both offenses have success. So that's why it's a really, really tough game. At more than 7, I'm going to start to get a little interested in San Francisco. I'm not yet. If you got Green Bay early in the week at a really good number, salute to you. You're in a good spot, I think. But at this number, I wouldn't lay it with Green Bay. And I lean to the over, but 48.5. I'm hoping it drops another point or two. Then I might get in on it. But 48.5 with San Francisco really trying to, have long sustained drives. And they're, I think, capable of having those long sustained drives because Green Bay continues to struggle to get off the field against the run. That could be the issue here going into this game here with the Packers and the 49ers. As far as the player props, like I said, I'm zoning in tonight specifically, and I'll have all my player props for and I usually post player props for every single primetime game in the NFL, the Thursday game, the Sunday night game, the Monday night game, and then I'll throw in a few props for the Sunday afternoon games on Twitter at Bobano. And we've done well with the player props this year. But tonight's game, what I'm looking at and zoning in and focusing on tonight is San Francisco run. The run-heavy attack that I expect them to employ in this game tonight. So what does that mean? It means I'm looking at Nick Mullins under pass completions, Nick Mullins under pass attempts. It means I'm looking at JaMycal Hasty over rushing yards, Jerick McKinnon over rushing yards. And another one that I like too is Jerick McKinnon in particular, not so much Hasty, but McKinnon for the 49ers is a very good pass catching running back. I could see Nick Mullins throwing the ball to him a lot in the screen game. The one thing the Packers do have is a decent enough pass rush. Keep Mullins clean, get the ball out of his hands quickly to a very effective pass-catching running back like a Jerick McKinnon. So to me, I'm also very much interested in Jerick McKinnon over receptions and over receiving yards as well, because I think he's going to catch the ball out of the backfield quite a bit. So that's what I'm looking at. Mullins under, pass completions and attempts, Jermichael Hasty over rushing yards, McKinnon over rushing yards, but also McKinnon over receptions and receiving yards, because I think he's going to be that, the way Kansas City utilizes Clyde Edwards-Helaire, very much I think what San Francisco is going to do with Jerick McKinnon tonight, be that safety valve receiving option for Nick Mullins tonight in the game. Jansen in the chat suggesting Tonyan over 3.5 receptions. Yeah, Tonyan to me has been very, very highly targeted for the Packers. Aaron Rodgers raves about him. Like every time they ask Aaron Rodgers about Robert Tonyan, he's just glowing with praise for the guy. And Robert Tonyan's a guy I've cashed a bunch of props with this year. I've had him touchdown scorer props a couple of times. I've had him receptions and receiving yards, I think, in a game earlier. I think it was the New Orleans game early this season for Green Bay. So, yeah, Tonyan touchdown scorer prop. I think even more than receptions and receiving yards, because with Adams back, that will take away a little bit of the over-the-middle looks he gets from Rodgers. But the touchdown scorer prop is definitely, I think, live for Robert Tonyan in the game tonight for the Green Bay Packers. So those are definitely some props to go with in the game tonight. And from a side and total perspective, again, now that it's down to 7 pretty much across the board, or up to 7, I should say, I'm not comfortable now at -7 laying with Green Bay. And in fact, if it gets above that, I might consider San Francisco. But it's a tricky game given the personnel issues on both sides. All right, let's move on now to Sunday's action. The Sunday card for Week 9 in the NFL. As always, we'll go in rotation order. Let's start with Seattle and Buffalo. The Seahawks, 2.5 3-point favorites at Bills Stadium, as it's now being called, in Orchard Park, New York. The total 55 in this game. Now, Seattle showed some defense last week. That's the first thing I want to mention about this game. And we know this has been a Seattle defense that has been terrible throughout the course of the season. They've not gotten stops. They've not had any sort of pass rush. And it's been a major issue for the Seahawks this year. But they finally showed you something in that regard last week against the San Francisco 49ers. Again, a little bit injury influenced. Kittle left the game. Jimmy Garoppolo left the game. That's also why you have to take it with a grain of salt, in my opinion, in terms of what they did on the defensive side of the football. But it was an improvement from the Seahawks on defense last week in that game, which is significant. And now they could be starting to get some key guys back, including Jamal Adams, who we've talked about multiple times on this show, is definitely one of the guys that the Seahawks brought in here to shore up the secondary, shore up the defense overall. Of course, Carlos Dunlap, they trade for him with the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, a little bit of a problem child at times, Carlos Dunlap. There's no denying that. But he's a pass rusher, and who needs a pass rusher more right now than this Seattle Seahawks team? They need one badly, and now it looks like at least they might finally have one here in Carlos Dunlap. So again, reinforcements. The defense did look better last week, but now you're doing it on the road, and you're doing it against a Buffalo offense that's had its issues the last few weeks, but to me, it's still a really good offense. And there's been mediocre offenses that have, been able to move the ball well against Seattle. I think the Bills are capable of putting up points. It was a pretty good game from them. They got to run the football well last week, which was good to see. The run game had really stopped working for Buffalo, but Singletary was able to run the football successfully last week for the Bills, which was good to see. Josh Allen was definitely pretty good last week against New England at times. They took a while to get going, but once they got going, it was a pretty decent performance from him. The Buffalo offense, to me, at home is capable of moving the ball here against Seattle, but Buffalo's defense is at the point now where I'm ready to say they're just not that same group. They've now had multiple weeks to prove that, hey, this game where they struggled on defense was just an anomaly, a one-off, and they really have not shown me that it's a one-off at any point. It's been week after week. This team is struggling. Their secondary's not the same. I don't know. Is Trey White all of a sudden, after all the praise he got last year, declined in his play? The secondary's not been great. Carlos Hyde's had a tough year in that secondary, but especially up front. You're not getting consistent pass rush from Addison, from Hughes, from Ed Oliver, and they're getting gutted by opposing ground attacks. We talked about Green Bay's run defense a few minutes ago. Buffalo's run defense the last few weeks. I mean, we saw what Kansas City did against them, ran the football right down their throat. New England was running the football right down their throat last week. And in fact, if Cam Newton's not fumbling the ball in the final few seconds of that game, Patriots probably punch in that touchdown. I didn't have a lot of faith that they were stopping the New England offense on that penultimate drive that could have won the game for the Patriots. So they've got some significant issues they have to sort out, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to going into this game. Seattle's going to be a popular side here, no question. And when it comes to Seattle, I've said this before, that I don't want to lay more than a field goal with Seattle because their defensive woes have been problematic. But if you're going to give me Seattle in a price range and a point spread range like this, where a win probably equals a point spread cover, a straight up win equals the cover, and that could be the case here with Seattle only laying 2.5, it's difficult to go against them right now. So I would lean Seattle here in this game. I don't know if it makes my card or if I pull the trigger on it, but I don't know if I can't trust Buffalo's defense against Wilson right now. But I do think the Bills can move the ball here. This is a high number, 55, but you look at the Seattle team, the last 2 weeks, the games have flown over the total. In fact, you go back the last several, every Seattle game, I'll rhyme it off. They're 5-2 to the over this season. Buffalo, by the way, 6-2 to the over this season. Seattle's game totals were 63, 65, 69, 54, 53, 71, and 64. So the fewest amount of total points scored in a Seattle game this year were the 53 points scored in a game against Minnesota a few weeks ago. So 53 has been the smallest total points in a Seattle Seahawks game this season. So this total's 55. I think there's wiggle room here to get this game over the total. And you see me with the golf shirt on right now here, and I'm about, I guess you could say, 90-minute drive away from Buffalo. It's warm today here and in Western New York and Buffalo. It's going to be warm and sunny and really good November football conditions in Buffalo, which is a rarity. So I think the weather is going to be terrific on Sunday. Both offenses, I think, should have success. So I like the over more than anything here, 55. Again, the lowest number of points we've seen total in a Seattle game this year has been 53. So you got to figure this at least gets to 53 in this game, and give me another field goal beyond that. It gets to 56. This cashes. So again, I like the over here in this game, Seattle and Buffalo more than anything. I lean Seattle, but the total is the stronger stance for me in this game. Denver, Atlanta. Atlanta 4-point home favorites, 50 the total. This is a pass for me. I'll tell you that. Right? I won't be involved in this game from a side perspective or even from a totals perspective. The total is 50, and I think people are reacting and betting this total up from 47 to 50. I think it's a reaction to Denver last week that they got their offense going and the game flew over the total with the Chargers. But that game was on pace to stay under until it exploded late in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter with all the scoring. And I don't know if Drew Lock truly came of age and showed you what he's capable of, or was that the Chargers defense falling asleep with a big lead? That is the dilemma I have here. And I know there's people giving Drew Lock a ton of credit for that rescue from behind victory against the LA Chargers last week. But, the Chargers, the Denver offense looked inept for over a half against the Chargers. Okay, they didn't do anything on offense. They were stopped on the ground. Drew Lock was making bad, inaccurate throws, was under constant pressure. Then Joey Bosa, let's not forget, Joey Bosa got injured in that game for the LA Chargers. And it seemed like the minute they lost him and he was no longer on the football field, that's when that Denver offense started going. And that's definitely a concern of mine going into this game, that, we're all getting excited about, oh, look, Drew Lock finally showed you something. Did he? Did the Chargers defense just lay their foot off the gas pedal all of a sudden with a big lead? Plus they lost Bosa for a portion of that game. And did that influence what happened? Or was it legitimately Denver's offense making things work? I think it's probably more the latter. So can they make it work in Atlanta? Well, we know Atlanta's defense is very suspect. However, for the season, they're very suspect. But the last couple of weeks, since Raheem Morris has taken over, we've seen Atlanta with some pretty strong efforts. They beat Minnesota. They should have beat Detroit, but blew it in the last minute. We know Todd Gurley should have stopped short of the goal line and won the game at the end rather than give Detroit a chance. And, of course, the Lions won it. And then last week against Carolina, I was impressed. The defense blew up the line of scrimmage. They had a couple of key fourth down stops against Carolina's offense, and they forced a bunch of turnovers. And getting key stops, winning the battle in the line of scrimmage, forcing turnovers for this Atlanta defense, it's something they just were not doing early in the season. But Dan Quinn gets fired, Raheem Morris takes over, and all of a sudden you're seeing some promise, or at least a little bit of hope for this Atlanta Falcons defense the last few weeks going into this game here against Denver. So, and they've shown you great energy, great enthusiasm. This isn't a team that's quit on the season. They're still giving it their best every single week. And really, again, they should be 3-0, to be honest with you, under Raheem Morris, because the Detroit game, they never should have lost that one. They did, but definitely this is an Atlanta team that has shown me enough that, and I had Carolina last week against them. And after that, I said, you know what, I'm going to have to ease off betting against Atlanta here because they have shown you energy. They have shown you focus. They have shown that they're not letting this season go, and they're not just mailing it in the rest of the way. But after a big come-from-behind win for Denver last week against the Chargers, which now gets them to 3 wins on the season, you can't necessarily expect Denver, to mail it in here in this game either. And when you look at these two teams from a point spread perspective, Denver's been a value point spread team. It's a lot of these point spreads haven't been pretty for Denver in terms of covering the number, but they're 5-2 ATS. So they have had some point spread value here in this game. So it's conflicting for me. I mean, I don't love laying more than a field goal with Atlanta, but I don't know if I want to back Denver here against this resurgent, I guess you could say, Atlanta team, especially coming off what could look like, at least what in my mind could be a little bit of a misleading victory for Denver last week against the Chargers. So it's an interesting game to watch for sure, but definitely one I'll probably be staying off betting when it's all said and done. Chicago, Tennessee 6-point favorites at home, 47 the total in this game. Tennessee has not been winning a ton of games by big margins this year. I mean, you look at their results so far this season, this Titans team, they have, again, the wins were by 6 against Houston, by 1 against Minnesota, by 3 against Jacksonville, by 2 against Denver. The only game that they won by a big margin was against Buffalo, 42-16. And really that game was close for into the second half. And then Tennessee ran away with it in the second half. So it's not the easiest team to say, yeah, let's lay almost a touchdown with them, especially with the defense playing like it is. They have a Super Bowl caliber offense, Tennessee. There's no doubt. With Derrick Henry playing outstanding. Ryan Tannehill has been terrific all season long. He wasn't great last week, but there were some drop passes. There were some things that didn't go well in that game for the Tennessee offense, but I think he'll be fine. It's not like he was terrible in that game against the Bengals. It was a really tough spot. Remember, Tennessee gave it their all. The battle of undefeated teams 2 weeks ago against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They fell behind early. They came back in the second half. Nearly got the win. Gostowski misses the field goal in the final seconds. They fall short. And I think there was a little hangover in effect for Tennessee last week against Cincinnati. I like the Bengals plus the points in that. That game was good to me because I also had the over at a lower number after all that wind money pushed that game to the under. and I bet it over at about 50.5, and it got there, the over, as well as the Bengals. So I knew it was a good bet against spot for Tennessee last week. This might be a good bet on spot now. It's 2 losses in a row. I expect full focus. They're back home, and I think they're going to be able to. Their defense, this is where you have to find out is if their defense is worth a shit, if their defense is worth anything, or it can be even at least somewhat respectable and decent. They're not a good defense. They've clearly shown that the last few weeks, Tennessee. It's not a good defensive football team. Not when you're giving up 31 to Cincy. Not when you're giving up 21 points in the first half against Pittsburgh, or 36 points against Houston, or 30 points against Kirk Cousins, or 30 against Jacksonville. It's not a great defense. Davion Clowney, could you make a play? Could you do something? They got you to be a difference maker and attack opposing quarterbacks and get up some pressure, and I don't see enough of it from him on a weekly basis. So it's not a great Tennessee defense, but this is one of the weakest offenses that they've played this season, the Chicago Bears. They've played Burrow, they've played Ben, they've played Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen. They've played some good quarterbacks lately, the last 4 games. Burrow, Ben, Watson, Allen. That's a pretty good quartet there of quarterbacks that this Tennessee defense has had to play against. Now you got to face Nick Foles and this mediocre Bears offense that, they did move the ball last week a little bit against the Saints, although they end up losing in overtime 26-23. But the Saints defense hasn't been all it's been cracked up to be this season. They haven't been as strong as you would have thought. So before that, though, the Bears got shut down by the Rams. It didn't do much against Tampa Bay, even though they squeaked out a win there. It was because of their defense. Same with the win against Carolina. They were terrible offensively against Indianapolis. Other than, Atlanta's defense when they were really bad, and Detroit in the first week of the season when they needed a miraculous comeback. This is not an offense that's consistently worked for the Bears. I don't think their play calling is all that great. The skill position talent lacks. The offensive line has been a problem all season long. And when you look at Tennessee's defensive front, there's part of me that says they should be generating more pressure than they should be. Well, this is one of the weakest offensive lines that they faced all year, this Chicago team. This, to me, has to be the spot. And Mike Vrabel, the head coach, was kind of giving it to his defense after last week against Cincinnati. The coach kind of called them out. We need to start making plays. We need playmakers on the defense. I'm not seeing enough of them right now. So he kind of called out the defense. A defensive guy, of course, for this team. So I would expect this this Tennessee team to really try to shore things up, I should say, on the defensive side of the football, especially when you've got a coach who's a former linebacker in the league, just saying, we got to be better on defense. This is where I'm going to be proactive. Tennessee's defense doesn't make you think that they're capable of stopping anybody right now, but this is a spot where this is the weakest offense and quarterback that maybe you've played all season. Let's see what you can do here. I've been riding Tennessee over the total, and right away I will say it's no way I'm betting Tennessee under. However, this week I might lay off betting Tennessee over the total. 46.5, 47 for a Chicago game. That's pretty damn high. Now, it did get there last week, 49. With the overtime game against New Orleans. So maybe it still gets over the total. Over is the only way I would play it. Tennessee's on this ridiculous overrun. Dating back to Mariota getting benched last year and Ryan Tannehill taking over as quarterback, this team's been an over machine. They're already 5-1-1 to the over this season in 7 games. I think they finished last year 9-2 to the over in their last 11 games. So you're looking at something like 14-3 for Tennessee to the over in their last 17 games or so. So there's no way. Tennessee's not an under team for me. It's over or pass for me from a totals perspective. I just don't know if I want to bet a Bears game over 47. Like, that number is high for Chicago. It's very low for Tennessee, but it's very high for Chicago. A total of 47 in this kind of range. So, and I do think Tennessee focuses defensively in this game because they know that they've got to fix that. It hasn't been good the last several weeks. This is the weakest offense they've played. buy low spot, bounce back spot after 2 straight losses. I more than anything, I'm looking at laying the 6 here with Tennessee. It does concern me that Chicago hasn't lost a lot of games by margin. It concerns me a little that Tennessee hasn't won a lot of games by margin this year, but I'm still looking in that direction. Tennessee, bounce back spot, at home, laying -6 in this game. Detroit, Minnesota, next game on the card. Minnesota -4, 52.5 the total. This number's climbed a little bit from the opener. I could see why that is. Minnesota with I didn't know what we were going to get from Minnesota last week against Green Bay. This was a team that's struggling. This was a team that was at 1-5 going into last week. A team that's trading guys away as well. Let's not forget that. They've started to unload a few key players with, of course, Yannick Ngakoue going to Baltimore. And started to look like this team had quit or, waving the white flag on this season. But sure enough, they rise from the ashes last week and they go into Lambeau against Green Bay as touchdown underdogs, and they win outright and pretty much control that game from start to finish. 28-22 victory for the Minnesota Vikings, taking advantage of that Green Bay run defense. And that was significant for them going into that game. The question for Minnesota is always, now especially with Dalvin Cook back, can they run the ball successfully and effectively? If they can, they're going to have success. It's simple as that offensively, because you can't put all the eggs in the basket of Kirk Cousins. It's been proven he is not a guy that you can trust to be able to carry the team with his arm through the air. And when you look at the Lions' defensive statistics so far this season, you're looking at a Detroit team that's given up 4.3 yards per carry, 130 rushing yards per game. So what does that mean? That means Minnesota should be able to run the ball here in this game. No question. Detroit, another one of these losing teams that really hasn't packed it in, that had been given some pretty good effort in their last few games, beating Jacksonville. They fell short against New Orleans, but they beat Arizona. They fell short against New Orleans. They beat Jacksonville up. They came back to beat Atlanta in the final play of the game. But last week, I don't think it was an effort issue. I think it was just, the defense was shredded by Phillip Rivers off a bye, by Frank Reich more than anything off a bye. You give Frank Reich an opportunity to be able to prepare a game plan for his team with extra time to prepare. And he had that Colts offense humming last week. Great scheming, great game planning. And it's an indictment of Matt Patricia. It really is, because here's Frank Reich. He's got all this time to figure out what Matt Patricia's doing on defense and how to attack it. And he just has his offense running circles around this Matt Patricia defense. So you talk about a coaching advantage, and I'm pissed. I didn't bet Indy last week. Mad, furious, in fact. I said that on Twitter. It was a huge regret for me, huge, last week. In that particular game. With the Colts were just, not even laying a full field goal on the road in that game. I was just worried because Detroit's been in a lot of close games. But sure enough, a situation where Frank Reich is just a much better coach off the bye week. Should have bet it, because you figured he'd have his team much better prepared, executing better on both sides of the ball than the slob Matt Patricia, and that's exactly what ended up happening in that game, with the Colts winning big against the Lions. Of course, now the Lions going to have to deal with being without Matthew Stafford moving forward. He has come down with COVID-19, placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. So we'll have to wait and see. Although it hasn't been completely ruled out he'll play, he could be eligible to play, is the last word we're seeing, against the Vikings if he remains asymptomatic. And he has to test negative for the next several days. So he's going to have to test negative again today, Friday, Saturday, and I would assume game day as well, if he's going to play. If not, it'll be Chase Daniel time. And apparently they're splitting the reps. They're splitting the reps in practice between Chase Daniel and David Blau. David Blau has had some okay moments here and there. And he's also had some not great moments, and some games where he's played terrible. And then there's been some games where he's made some good throws. Chase Daniel in other places, New Orleans, Kansas City, he was actually not bad. The few glimpses he's gotten a look here, though, in Detroit, it's not been as good for him. And I think it's just because he doesn't have a whole lot as much around him here going into this game as well. You also have to keep an eye on the status of Kenny Golladay. He is not likely to play, and that's a huge loss. TJ Hawkinson, the tight end, who's been great for this Lions team. They haven't had a lot of great things regarding the team this year, but the play of some of their skill position talent on offense has been really good. DeAndre Swift, of course, has been terrific, the running back out of Georgia. But Hawkinson's questionable. Kenny Galladay's doubtful. So you could be down to Marvin Jones and Danny Amendola. They're going to obviously be the guys that are the focus of the passing game for the Lions. So there's a lot up in the air. Stafford may or may not play. I would assume he's not going to play. I think it's going to take a lot for him to, pass all these obstacles, with testing negative day after day, not having much practice this week. That's another concern. Even if he does play, he hasn't been on the practice field much this week. But you could see Daniel or Blau in his place for this game. So that explains why Minnesota's taken the money they have in this game. It's a wait and see. I got to see who's in and who's out and who's playing quarterback for Detroit before betting it. But I think if you got Minnesota less than a field goal, because they opened 2-point favorites, they're 4 now across the board in this game. I think if you got Minnesota at that good number, you're definitely in good shape and may have the right side here in this game. I could see Minnesota winning it. And now that it's at 4, 4, if all of these guys are still out for Detroit, including Stafford, is probably still a good bet at -4 on Minnesota. But if Stafford does play, -4 with Minnesota, no way would I be interested in it. So it's really contingent upon what we see and who's in for the Lions for this game. Baltimore, Indianapolis. We've got the Ravens. They opened a 4-point favorite here in this game. And now all the way down to 1.5 and 2-point road favorites here in Indy, coming off the tough loss against Pittsburgh in that huge showdown game last week. The total in this Ravens-Colts game, 47 right now, pretty much across the board. We'll have to wait and see here for the Baltimore Ravens, because all of a sudden, Marlon Humphrey, top cornerback, testing positive for COVID-19, and they're worried now that this could be a cluster COVID-19 situation for the Baltimore Ravens heading into this game against the Indianapolis Colts. And that's why you're seeing this money move and this line move to where it is here in this game. That's obviously a huge loss. There's a reason why he got paid big bucks in that secondary for the Baltimore Ravens. He's been excellent. He's been shut down. It's been very difficult for quarterbacks throwing in his direction to make plays down the field. He's been that good. He's been that lockdown guy in the Ravens secondary, and without him, he'll be missed. Look, if you look at the stats last week for the Baltimore Ravens against Pittsburgh, they outplayed Pittsburgh, they outrushed them, they outyarded them, they outstatted them, they outgained them significantly. The game was lost, and Lamar Jackson, to his credit, stepped up to the podium, stepped up to the mic after that loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers last week, and he was truthful with the team. He said it, I cost the team the game, and essentially he did. With all of his turnovers, including the pick 6 early in the game. First drive of the game, in fact, that set the tone for that entire game last week. Mistakes that a guy now that's, in his 3rd, 4th year in the league, shouldn't be making those mistakes. He shouldn't be. You got to protect the football. You got to make good decisions. And he didn't do well enough in that category last Sunday against Pittsburgh. And it essentially cost the Ravens an opportunity to win that game last week against the Steelers. They battled back. They could have had a chance to win it late, but again, broken up the incomplete pass at the goal line. Pittsburgh was able to hang on. Pittsburgh was one of my favorite plays last week on the Week 8 NFL card, so I was happy to see it, but it was a little bit of a misleading result. Baltimore didn't play as bad as the score would indicate. In fact, they had the better of the play, but again, turnovers cost them. Here's the issue now. This number, with all things equal, and Baltimore having a fully healthy team for this game, if they were to have a fully healthy team for this game, this is a very cheap number on Baltimore, laying less than a field goal here at Indianapolis. It's a bounce back spot for them. I'm leaning to Baltimore, but I need clarification. Who's in and who's out here? The problem I have with backing Indianapolis in this game, Phillip Rivers against an above-average defense, I don't like him in those spots. I don't like him with those games. All right? He faced Detroit last week. Bad defense, picked it apart. You look at every good Phillip Rivers game this year, he's played a pretty weak defense, and he's been able to pick it apart. You look at the games where Phillip Rivers has not played well this year. Cincinnati picked them apart, bad defense. Even the Cleveland game, mediocre defense had success, but the good defenses, Chicago struggled in that game. Even Minnesota, the second game of the season, it's a misleading 28 they put up. They didn't exactly click on offense, but by far the best defense they played this season was Chicago, and he was horrible in that game. I still remember it vividly in Soldier Field. That game, Phillip Rivers looked hideous, and it was a product of a good Bears defense. Baltimore's got that same caliber of defense, if not even a little bit better, especially now that they got Ngakoue on the team to bolster that pass rush. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays here in this game against the Baltimore Ravens. I don't trust him against a good defense or an above-average defense, and this is, make no mistake about it, even without Marlon Humphrey, that does hurt, but will the pass rush be there? That's the key, and it should be. And if the pass rush gets there, Rivers can make mistakes, and it can mask whatever the absence of Humphrey in this game at cornerback for the Ravens. So I'm trying to make every excuse I can to bet Baltimore here. But again, I can't bet it now. I need more clarity on exactly what this situation is right now with the Ravens in terms of this COVID-19 situation. 8 defensive players were placed on this COVID-19 reserve list yesterday, all of them on defense. That's the concern here, because this is an above average defense. This is a really good defense when they're fully healthy. Are they going to be fully healthy for this game? If they're not, maybe it does give Phillip Rivers a chance to have a decent game if they got a lot of backups and third stringers in there because of this situation. So it's a really, really tough game for me to predict and call and bet right now until we get more clarity on the Ravens situation. And Jansen's mentioning it in the chat about, Rivers in a dome environment or an indoor environment. What doesn't surprise me that he's played better in those kind of situations. Detroit game, he played well indoors. The home game against Cincinnati, he played well. The Jets game at home, he played well. Minnesota at home, he played well. It's the road games he didn't play as well. In fact, you look at Indianapolis, 4-0 straight up and ATS at home this year, if I'm not mistaken. No, 3-0. 3-0 straight up, 2-1 against the spread. They didn't cover against Cincinnati. But again, they're home underdogs here. And they're 3-0 straight up at home, and they're home underdogs. So, winning by margin is not going to be of concern here if you like the Indianapolis side. So, again, I lean Ravens, but we're going to see what the fallout is for the who's in and who's out for the Ravens on Sunday. Carolina, Kansas City, 10.5-point favorites, 52.5 the total. Man, I don't love betting against Kansas City. I just don't. But this is a lot of points. Teddy Bridgewater's now 20-5 against the spread as a underdog in his career. I believe he's something like, in terms of a road underdog, 15-2 ATS as a road underdog, Teddy Bridgewater, in his career. That's tough to go against. And if you're Kansas City, are you really that fired up for a home game against Carolina? This might be a game where you just get out of here and get the win. The Chiefs, obviously, outstanding last week against the lowly, pathetic New York Jets. Carolina looks like they're sort of regressing a little bit. Rose has come off the pedals a little bit for the Carolina the hockey team. Carolina Panthers, the last few games, 0-3 straight up. They've only covered 1 point spread in that game, but it was on the road against New Orleans. And you look at what they've done. Carolina on the road when they're facing a good to above, decent to good to above average team. Tampa Bay, again, they were right in that. That's the one they didn't cover against an above average team on the road, but it was a 7-point game. You remember Carolina had an onside kick. Tampa recovered it. And then the very next play, Leonard Fournette ran for a touchdown to make that a 14-point game. If not for that, Carolina would have covered against Tampa Bay early in the season. After that, they were road dogs against the Chargers. They won outright. They were road dogs at Atlanta. They won outright. They were road dogs 2 weeks ago against New Orleans. 7.5-point favorites. They covered. They only lost that game by 3. So you see what I'm getting at here in this game. Carolina's been great in this road underdog role, and specifically Teddy Bridgewater in his career has been great in this road underdog role. I've got Carolina circled. I'll be honest. It's taken a lifetime. It's taken ages for me to muster up an opinion that I think could be strong enough to bet against the Chiefs. It's just not something I've been looking to do. This is a Chiefs team that, despite being the best team in the NFL, despite being Super Bowl champions last year, they're 6-2 ATS last year. I believe they are on a 18-2 ATS run in their last 20 games dating back to last year, which is incredible because this is supposed to be the best team in the NFL, defending Super Bowl champions. You're not supposed to have a 16-2 or an 18-2 type of ATS streak going when you're that kind of team. Bye week for Chiefs next week, says Jansen. Yeah, and sometimes, you always get focus from a team in that spot. Not always. So there's enough I like. The issue I have with Carolina is the defense has really fallen off the last few games. They've had issues. They've lacked a pass rush, which you can trace back to the injury of Kayvon Short weeks ago. They just haven't been able to get pressure. And if you can't pressure Mahomes, you could be in for a long, long day here. I do like the over a little bit as well in this game. Because I do worry that Carolina could get chewed up a little bit defensively here. We've seen the total go up a little bit already from 50.5 to 52.5. I agree with that. But from a side perspective, definitely leaning Carolina here, getting 10.5. Houston, Jacksonville. We've got Houston 6.5-point road favorites, 50.5 the total in this game. Jacksonville, for the last several weeks, has looked like a mess. The Chargers game, though, which was before their bye week, I'll give them credit. They battled in that game. I saw effort. They didn't lay down. They didn't give up. And now they're coming off a bye. Doug Marrone looks like he's just, I don't know if he's losing his mind or if he's just trying to stimulate any sort of, continue to fight for this Jacksonville team that's now 0-6 straight up, 1-5 against the spread their last 6 games. Heading into this one, the only victory for them was against Indianapolis all the way back in week 1. But he's saying, I'm fired up. We're going to get this thing figured out. And we're not giving up on the season is what he's saying. And he's making a quarterback change. Very surprising because I don't think Minshew's been the biggest of Jacksonville's problems. It's really been a bad defense that's given up 30-plus points in 6 of their 7 games this year. I think that's where the issue is for Jacksonville. But nevertheless, Gardner Minshew out and Jake Luton out of Oregon State, the starting quarterback this week for the Jaguars. Doug Marrone also saying that we're throwing the ball down the field. We're going to let this guy chuck the ball down the field, attack the Houston secondary vertically, try to get some big plays going in this game. They might have success doing it. Again, we don't know fully about that yet because this is the first ever start for Luton. But this Houston secondary, it's abysmal. They're giving up 7.4 yards per pass, 252 through the air per game. Their run defense hasn't been that good either. Jacksonville, not exactly a team you trust to be able to run the football with success. It's obviously, the days of them having Leonard Fournette are gone. They've definitely had some instability at the running back position. James Robinson and Chris Thompson are, decent, but they're not outstanding top of the line, upper echelon running backs in the NFL. But they should have offensive success going into this game, running the football, and it should help Luton and open up things for the passing game and take these deep shots, which apparently the Jaguars coaching staff wants to in this game. And, Houston under Romeo Crennel, we've seen them, first couple games, they really gave you some pretty good effort, no question. Jacksonville, they won the first game with Crennel. They battled Tennessee right down to the wire, a gut-wrenching overtime loss for them the second game under Romeo Crennel. But then before their bye week 2 weeks ago against Green Bay, they got off to a bad start. And this defense still is an issue. 42, 35 points allowed the last 2 games. Now, they did win and cover when they played Jacksonville the first game after Bill O'Brien got fired. And I was on Houston in that game. But you look at the point spread adjustment. Houston was a 6-point favorite at home against Jacksonville back on October 11th. In that 30-14 win. And now they're 6.5, 7-point road favorites in this game against Jacksonville. So they're actually laying more points here on the road in the rematch against the Jaguars than they did in the initial game between these two division rivals in Houston earlier this season. I'm tempted by Jacksonville. I really am. This is a bottom tier, horrible Houston defense. Hasn't been able to stop hardly anybody. It really hasn't changed much since the coaching change. You're going to ask a bad defense to lay a touchdown or close to it on the road? No, I'm not interested. It's Jacksonville or nothing for me, and I certainly like this game over the total, especially when you hear right from the Jacksonville's coach, we're throwing the ball deep this week, or we're trying to. We're going to attempt to do that. That's good for over bettors whenever you hear a quote like that. So it's Jacksonville. It's over the total for me in the matchup between the Jaguars and the Texans. All right, moving on down the card as we're getting there through this Sunday card. Hope you're enjoying the Ian Cameron Football Frenzy right here on Pub Sports Radio. We've got the NFC least rivals going at it here, the New York Giants and Washington football team. Washington minus 2.5 point home favorites, 42.5, 43 the total. The Giants open 3.5 point road dogs down to 2.5. Look, they have been amazing, the New York Giants, as road underdogs. If you're going to back the New York Giants in 1 point spread roll, it's especially road underdogs. They have been remarkable as a road dog, this New York Giants team. Everybody's aware of that, no question. They've been excellent in this point spread roll. Let me see if I can find the exact numbers here for the New York Giants in the road underdog roll, because it is impressive. They're 14-2 against the spread in their last 16 as a road underdog. I think that's partially why the Giants have taken money here in this game, down to 2.5 now on Washington, but it's not my money. Let's keep in mind that in that 14-2 ATS run as a road dog, you know how many of those games the Giants were at least getting, over a field goal or even a touchdown or more in those games, bigger underdogs? Most of those games, they were covering in a bigger point spread range, a much bigger point spread range than this one. Now they're in a point spread range. Yeah, they're still road underdogs, but they're in a point spread range where they have to almost win the game in order to cash a ticket. And I don't know if I trust the Giants to do that. Another gut-wrenching, another crushing loss, soul-crushing loss. I mean, you give it all against Tampa Bay. You hang in there against a really good Bucs team on Monday Night Football. The effort was great for the Giants. It really was. I mean, the defense, rattled Tom Brady for well over a half, gave their team a chance to win that game, but they just can't make the plays down the stretch. Brady and the Bucs offense gets going eventually. And then, of course, Daniel Jones' opportunity to win the game. And boy, he almost pulled it off, or at least force overtime. He got the touchdown to make it 25-23, but 2-point conversion fails and they fall just short again. Another agonizing loss for Joe Judge's team when this Giants group has already had a bunch of just real tough losses. I mean, 20-19 or 25-23 to Tampa Bay, 22-21. Remember, they coughed up the lead against the Eagles on Thursday Night Football. Before that, they lose by 3 against Dallas, by 9 against the Rams, by 4 against Chicago. They've had a lot of tough losses. Eventually, it wears on you mentally. And now it's a short week, playing on Monday night, and now going on the road against Washington. It's not a spot for the Giants I trust them in. And it was almost like a morose atmosphere after losing that game against Tampa Bay on Monday night. On the flip side for Washington, I think they'll be ready to go here. They lost to the Giants on a tough loss for them. For the Giants, only their one and only victory this year was 20-19 against this Washington team. I think Washington pays them back. There's signs of life for Washington the last few weeks. I think the fact that Ron Rivera, who's been battling his chemo, has had his chemo treatments going this season, he's finally starting to get back into the swing of being in the routine of being the head football coach of this Washington team. That's helping them, because the last few games you've seen some improvement from Washington. They hung in there with the Ravens for a large part of that game. Even the Rams game was not the blowout the 30-10 score indicates. They probably should have beat the Giants in the first meeting, lost 20-19, and of course before their bye week against Dallas. Now Dallas is hapless, I get it, but the fact they dominated Dallas and rolled to an easy 25-3 victory, I definitely think that's a positive sign here for Washington. Now with this number trickling down and being below a field goal, I'm very much interested in Washington here, backing the football team, -2.5 in this game against the New York Giants. There's not a spot I trust them in. The defense, and again, Daniel Jones against a defensive front that can get pressure. That's not the matchup I want Daniel Jones in. And the Washington strength is that defensive front led by Chase Young and company. I think Washington pulls out the home win here. I like them -2.5 in this battle against the New York Giants on Sunday. All right, moving on down the card. We keep it rolling. We're down to, I believe, the late games now for Sunday. Yes, we are. Las Vegas Raiders, LA Chargers. Chargers pick 'em. 51.5 the total in this game. Don't look now, but the LA Chargers are over the total machines, and I've finally picked up on it and been able to take advantage of it. The LA Chargers, 4 straight overs, 38-31 against Tampa, 30-27 against New Orleans, 39-29 against Jacksonville, 31-30 in that just hideous loss against the Denver Broncos. Anthony Lynn this season coughed up a lead to Tampa, a lead to New Orleans, a lead to Denver, and they led all of those games at one point by double digits and lost all 3 of them. This isn't just a team finding ways to lose. This is bad coaching as well. The coach deserves blame when you have repeated incidents of not being able to close out games when you have a big double-digit lead. Anthony Lynn has been, to me, disappointing. You look at the Kansas City game. The guy's got 4th and 1 on his. Okay, it's on his own 30-yard line, but 4th and 1 to get the first down in overtime. And he decides to punt the football back to just the best quarterback and most electrifying, explosive offense in the NFL in Kansas City. And sure enough, Kansas City right down the field wins the game. I mean, that's the kind of bad coaching that has plagued this LA Chargers team this year because of Anthony Lynn. And again, that's the kind of loss that you really worry about a true hangover, going into this game if you're the LA Chargers. I mean, that was brutal. You're up 21-3. You're in cruise control last week against Denver. Denver's offense can't even do anything last week for over a half. And then all of a sudden, bing, bang, boom, Drew Lock looks like John Elway in his prime for that Broncos team in the second half last week. Just a hideous, gut-wrenching, kicking the nuts type of loss for the LA Chargers. And you worry about whether it's a loss that provides a knockout punch for this team. Is that team going to respond here in this game now that they're at 2-5? I don't know about it. That's the big concern here for me going into this game. What kind of response do we get from the Chargers after losing that kind of game? The defense continues to be an issue. And, Ski Profit, who's also doing videos for us here at Pub Sports Radio, you can check him out with me and Connor as well, Sundays, noon Eastern on the NFL Closing Time show here at Pub Sports Radio. But he mentioned it to me on the Sunday show last week to us, if you were watching. This Chargers defense, since Derwin James has been out, you're right, he's had injury issues galore for this Chargers team. He's not been able to stay healthy. And without him, they miss him. He is an integral part of this defense. And they've struggled, especially without him. And it's continued. They've been like Buffalo this year, this Chargers defense. They've not been the same defense. They've not been the same stop unit. They've regressed significantly defensively. But their offense has improved significantly because of Justin Herbert. He's done a great job. He continues to have success, confidence throwing the football. He's made a bunch of big plays. And I think he can make some big plays here against the Las Vegas Raiders defense, which was good last week. But again, the weather was windy as hell in Cleveland. Cleveland first game without Odell Beckham. The weather's going to obviously be fine here. I think the Chargers offense can still make plays here against the Las Vegas defense. It was better last week, but I'm going to need to see it from them again. It's still a spotty defense to me, the Raiders. But the Raiders are going to move the ball, I think, on the Chargers. I like what I'm seeing out of Derek Carr with Josh Jacobs at running back, Darren Waller, the tight end, Hunter Renfrow, Nelson Aguilar, Henry Ruggs making plays down the field in the passing game for this Raiders team. There's a lot to like with the Las Vegas team offensively. I see Preston in the chat liking the over. He's been reading my mail because that's exactly what I like here as well. Over the total. I was on the Chargers over the total. Last week, it was my best bet on the Sunday closing time show here at Pub Sports Radio. It was Broncos Chargers over 44.5. I said the Chargers are an over team right now until proven otherwise. And I think we'll see this game go over the total as well. From a side perspective, too, I think Las Vegas is the side here. I don't know if the Chargers have what it takes here to bounce back off that kind of loss, and the betting markets agree because the Chargers opened 2.5-point home favorites here. They're now pick 'em across the board. So we've seen Las Vegas money come in. I think a part of that, too, is the injury concerns for Joey Bosa. As well. Remember, he left the game last week, and that's really when the momentum completely flipped toward Denver. He's in concussion protocol right now. Not a sure thing at all to suit up Sunday, and without that pass rushing effect on Derek Carr, it should allow the Raiders to score. I think the Chargers get their points as well. So for me, it would be a lean to Las Vegas and probably a bet on the over. I don't know if I'll bet Las Vegas, but I'll definitely be on this over 51.5 for sure. Lean for sure, though, to the Raiders as well. Pittsburgh, Dallas. Yeah, I don't have much here. Pittsburgh 14-point road favorites, 42 the total. Spot-wise, it's just not the spot you lay 14 with Pittsburgh in. After just the incredible, huge win, physical toll, physical, emotional battle that it always is for the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Baltimore Ravens, their arch rival. That's just not the spot I'm laying 14. The week after a game like that. I'm just not doing it. But can you get there with Dallas? I can't, because they actually gave you some effort last week. They actually showed up. They played hard. The effort was there last week against Philadelphia. But at the end of the day, Ben DiNucci was terrible at the quarterback spot. Just wasn't comfortable in the pocket, holding on to the ball too long, taking too many sacks. If you're doing that against Philly's defense, you could screw up big time here against this Pittsburgh defense, which has been really outstanding for the most part this season. Although we may not see, Ben DiNucci here in this game. Mike McCarthy is still trying to figure out who his quarterback is going to be for this game. I don't even know if it matters at this point. The offensive line is in shambles. It looks like DiNucci, by the way, won't start against Pittsburgh, so they have pretty much seen enough that he's not going to play. We know Andy Dalton is not ready to go. He's not ready to come back yet. So we're down to either Garrett Gilbert. What's eating Garrett Gilbert? Reminds me of Gilbert Grape, that movie with young Leonardo DiCaprio from like 25 years ago. What's eating Garrett Gilbert? What's eating Garrett Gilbert is he may have to start for a pathetic football team on Sunday. With a bad offensive line and a defense that can't stop anybody. Although, again, the defense was a little bit better last week. You have to think there's going to improve a little bit, this Dallas defense at some point. But we did see it last week, but Philadelphia's got their share. How much stock do you put into that? Carson Wentz hasn't been great this year. Offensive line's had shuffling all season for the Eagles. The skill position talent group leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, how much do you want to say, wow, Dallas's defense actually showed you something last week? Well, show me something here, because Pittsburgh's offense is clicking right now. Ben Roethlisberger with Chase Claypool, my Canadian friend, is having a great season. Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner running the ball. I like what I'm seeing. The Steelers' offense has been really good, and it's going to be a test for Dallas. Dallas has still been so bad, and I've not seen enough of an uptick from them that I cannot back Dallas. I will not back Dallas. But it's a clear I don't want Pittsburgh either in this spot. It's got letdown written all over it against a bad Dallas team. If there's ever a go through the motions and just, sleepwalk type of performance from Pittsburgh, maybe this is the one. And if they do sleepwalk, then maybe Dallas does cover this number. But I'm not willing to put money on trusting them to do it. So, yeah, I'm not involved in that game. Miami, Arizona, this should be a really interesting game. How about Miami taking the money? Arizona opened 6. They're down to 4.5-point home favorites. 48.5 the total in this game. Good quarterback matchup. Tua Tagovailoa, first-round pick. Kyler Murray, first-round pick. Two of the faces of the future in terms of NFL quarterback play facing off here in this game. Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray. Arizona off a bye week going into this game. That's what's hesitating for me to back Miami here. Miami, to me, is not a team I'm in any rush to bet against right now. And so many people are making a big deal out of the misleading final score last week for the Miami Dolphins. They were outgained 471 to 145, by the way, was the yardage in that game, by 326 yards. And yet the Dolphins win by double digits. And a lot of people are going to say, you know what? It's a fraudulent result. I understand that. But You know what's not fraudulent right now for Miami? The play of their defense. I'm serious. I mean, to me, this defense early in the season couldn't stop anybody. To see the progress and the improvement this team has made, on the defensive side of the football the last few weeks, it's been impressive to watch. It really, again, you could argue the competition with some of these teams' offenses they've played, but, ever since they gave up 31 against Seattle, 17 against San Francisco when they blew out the Niners on the road, shutting out the Jets, neutralizing Jared Goff, forcing him into a ton of mistakes. You talk about a pass rush that's starting to take effect and work. We saw the pass rush on Jared Goff last week, force him into fumbles, force him into mistakes. And it's a team that they're feeling it right now, Miami. And every quote says, we're battling for the playoffs. We believe we can make it happen. They're 4-3 straight up. They're 5-2 against the spread. But don't sell Arizona short. They're 5-2 straight up. They're 5-2 against the spread. So it's two teams that are bet on teams for me. It's difficult to say I want to bet against either of these teams right now. Arizona's played well. They're coming off 3 straight wins, 3 straight covers. The Jets and Cowboys, nothing to write home about, but you beat Seattle. And the fight in Arizona to come back and win that game, it kept looking like, okay, Seattle's finally put it away. Okay, Seattle scored again. Now they finally put the game away. But no, Arizona said, nuts to that noise. We're coming back. We're going to keep plugging away. Kyler Murray kept driving the team down the field and putting up points for them. They get the game to overtime, and they end up winning in overtime. So this is a great game. This is one of the games, believe it or not, you would think of years past, Miami, Arizona, who the hell cares? But you got a 4-3 team surging with confidence on one side, and you have a 5-2 Arizona team surging with confidence on the other side. So it's a really interesting game. It's a game that I'm going to lay back on and say, let's watch it here. From a totals perspective, the total's gone up slightly, 47.5 to 48.5 here in this game. 2 good quarterbacks, and I think 2 quarterbacks that want to showcase. So I do lean a little bit to the over, but it's not one of my strongest opinions in terms of a total for this week. And from a side perspective, if you got Miami +6, I wouldn't argue. 4.5 though, not as keen on the Dolphins side. And 2 teams that, like I said, would just rather not bet against either of these teams right now, in all honesty. New Orleans and Tampa Bay, Sunday Night Football. Everybody looking forward to this, obviously. Tampa Bay 4-point favorites, 50.5, 51 the total. This should be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers debut of Antonio Brown, and it'll be fascinating to see how he assimilates with this Buccaneers team, which is obviously firing on all cylinders and playing their best football of the season right now. He's officially reinstated from his suspension Tuesday. He practiced with them for the first time yesterday. He's going to be on a snap count, though, according to Bruce Arians, saying, anywhere from a dozen to maybe 30 snaps or so for him in this game. So he's not going to be out there every single play for the Bucs on Sunday night as they host the Saints. So it's going to be interesting to see how Brady and him found some chemistry for the brief time they played together in New England. Can they get that going again here in this game? A revenge game as well for the Bucs. They lost earlier this season to the New Orleans Saints. When you look at it, we'll see if they're able to fare better here. New Orleans got them 34-23. It was one of those games where Brady threw a pick 6. Remember, that was his very first game as a member of this Buccaneers team, and he just wasn't all that sharp in that particular football game. Still trying to get used to the Bruce Arians offense as well. And New Orleans was able to take advantage of that with the 34-23 win. Obviously, you're going to expect Brady and the Buccaneer offense to play a lot better here. The Saints defense continues to have holes and continues to worry me. I mean, you look at these last several games since that win against Tampa, the Saints have given up 34 to Vegas, 37 to Green Bay, 29 to Detroit, 27 to the Chargers, 24 to Carolina. And Carolina went up and down the field against New Orleans in that game, I remember, and we needed them to because they weren't stopping the Saints either. And then Chicago last week. Chicago hasn't scored 23 points much. Well, New Orleans let them score 23. It's not been that lockdown Saints defense this season, not at all. I think Marshawn Lattimore's been shaky in the cornerback spot. He's not playing at the level we thought he would going into this season. There's been issues on the defensive side of the football. The pass rush has been sort of lacking at times in terms of quarterback pressures. I haven't seen it consistently from this Saints team this season. Alvin Kamara, was limited in practice apparently last week. I would expect, I think he's going to play. It says he's going to try to practice today. That's going to be significant. I mean, he's such an integral part of the offense, Alvin Kamara. So is he practicing today? That's definitely going to be big. Michael Thomas, we're still waiting on whether he's going to be able to come back from the ankle/hamstring injury. He was limited in Wednesday's practice. The issue is still lingering. So there's still question marks with Breeze with his shoulder as well. Kamara with the foot. Definitely a lot of question marks right now for the Saints. And even if Breeze, Kamara, Thomas, these guys do play, are they 100%? That's questionable. And all these guys have been limited in practice so far this week. So a little bit banged up on offense, this New Orleans Saints team going into this big Sunday night showdown against the Bucs. I would only look to the favorite here in this game. It's a second straight road game as well for the New Orleans Saints in this game. Now, they have been good on the road ATS. There's some really strong long-term ATS numbers for the New Orleans Saints on the road. That does concern me a little bit going into this game. You look at their road numbers this year for the New Orleans Saints, they've been better in terms of being able to cover numbers on the road than they have at home. But again, you look at the game they played in Las Vegas, they were 4-point favorites in that game. They ended up losing it outright, 34-24. The other road games, there was a 6-point win at Detroit and a 3-point win at Chicago. Tampa Bay is going to test them a lot more, with this number being -4. Short week for Tampa, too. That's another mild concern, but to me, it's Bucs or pass at -4 here, especially until I know further, how healthy the New Orleans Saints are going to be on offense here for this game. This total has also been hit downward a bit. 55 is where it opened, all the way down to 50.5, 51. Saints have been over machines. So we'll have to see if this total keeps on going down. But New Orleans is 7-0 to the over this season. Every single Saints game has gone over the total. You look at the Tampa Bay offensive numbers since Brady's kicked it into high gear: 38, 45, 25 points scored, 25 plus in 3 straight games. I'm going to continue to wait, see if this total continues to go down, which again is a reflection, I think, of the New Orleans injuries on offense. If they get some of these guys, if Breeze is good to go, Kamara is good to go, Thomas is good to go, and I can get this total in the 50.5, 51 still where it is now before it goes up again, then I might put some over in pocket here, because that's a pretty low number for where this Tampa Bay offense is right now. And if New Orleans defense struggling, and if New Orleans is going to have full complement on offense, that could make this total where it is now at 50.5, 51 look a little bit low. All right, the final game might be the worst game of the weekend, but so we did not save the best for last year. Monday Night Football, New England Patriots, New York Jets. New England 7.5 point road favorites, 41.5, 42 the total. I guess if I had to, I'd take New England, but I don't know what's left New England physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. They've just been awful for the last few weeks, really on both sides of the ball. I mean, you look at the Buffalo Bills loss last for the New England Patriots last week, couldn't get stops in the second half. The offense finally was able to run the football with success because the Bills' run defense has struggled. And then Cam Newton puts the ball on the ground in the final minute, a crushing loss, which is now New England's 4th loss in a row, 0-4 straight up, 1-3 against the spread their last 3 games. But still, you either lay the 7 with them. That's your one option. Your other option is an 0-8 straight up, 1-7 against the spread New York Jets team, betting them at any number. That's the pick your poison situation that you're backed into a corner here with in this Monday Night Football game. I doubt I bet this game. I'd be absolutely stunned if I have any sort of wagering opinion on this game before opening kickoff. Again, a little bit more competitive that 1 week against the Bills for the 1-point spread cover for the Jets, but right back to getting blown out last week by the Kansas City Chiefs, 35-9. Another ugly performance. The offense just stagnant, stuck in mud. The defense can't get stops against any sort of capable offense. I think the thing that stands out to me here is that the New York Jets, 4.1 yards per carry allowed, 116 rush yards per game allowed. They're the worst part of the defense has been the pass defense, but can Cam Newton and this really, really weak New England receiving core take advantage of it? Julian Edelman missed last week's game. He's on IR. N'Keal Harry missed last week's game. You were down basically to Damiere Byrd and Jacoby Myers and Gunnar Olszewski as your top 3 receiving options for Cam Newton last week. Not very good. Bill Belichick sticking with Cam Newton, saying he's his quarterback. You would expect them to run the ball a lot. The Jets aren't going to give you much offensively. Certainly, you could expect this to be a lower scoring game. I'm actually surprised the total's gone up, not down. 41 up to 42, 42 and a half. I guess lean under, lean Patriots, but not enough to like either of them to bet them at this point. And I doubt, like I say, I'm going to get involved with Monday Night Football other than maybe looking at some player props. But we've got a few days to get involved with that. So that'll wrap it up. That's the entire NFL card for Week 9. We've analyzed every game, as we always do, right here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I appreciate it. And this won't be the last time I talk NFL on this channel this week. If you haven't heard, or you've been living under a rock, or you forgot, we have our new Sunday kickoff show, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. It's the NFL Closing Time Show. Me, Connor Mack, and Ski Profit. We break down the NFL card 1 hour before kickoff, Sundays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. Don't forget as well, College Football Closing Time Show, Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, with me and Connor Mack, as we'll break down the college football card on Saturday from a betting perspective. Right before kickoff. So make sure you tune in for that. And also daily, Monday to Friday, weekdays, pre-recorded right here on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. It's the Ian Cameron Sports Report. Monday to Friday right here on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. We recap the night before. We preview a bunch of games from a betting perspective, latest betting news, all kinds of stuff on the Ian Cameron Sports Report. Weekdays here on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. Thanks to everyone in the chat, Jansen, Preston, Adam, Billy, everyone else that joined and tuned in. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. Good luck with your NFL Week 9 betting action. Good luck with all of your wagers. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you again next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel, as we do it all over again with another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.